Hello, good evening.
Good evening.
We are in another day, in another session. So we are going to start with the session number 2 of this last week. So at the end of this session, we are going to have just 2 more days to finish the course. So we are going to begin with this session because we are going to change topics. Yesterday we were talking about adverse in that case. We were like reading some information about that kind of adverse, and we have a lot of information about that topic, that is the sequence adverse. We were seeing the 5 different things that we have about the sequence adverbs and how to use them. And also we were seeing some examples and all of the things about this topic. So now we are going to change the topic and we are going to um, learn or have a review about the future tenses. So in this case, we are going to talk about future time, and we are going to see what are the 4 different future tenses that we have in English. And also we are going to separate them in 2 groups, because today we are going to learn about the simple future. And also we are going to talk about future continuous. So in that case, we are going to have 2 chances for today, and then we are going to have 2 chances for tomorrow, because we are going to have a future perfect and future perfect continuous tomorrow. So we are going to start with the 2 chances that we have in this case, because we are going to have 4. And you know that we have 3 different times or tenses in English, that in this case we have a past, present, and future. And each of these tenses has 4 more tenses that we are going to learn, or in this case, we are going to talk about the structures. So in this case, when we are talking about future, just like the past and present, there is more than one future tense in English. This change is depending on the function of what we want to say. So in this case, is depending on the things that we want to express in that time. And in this case, because we are talking about future, we are going to know uh, what kind of a structure that we can have for the different expressions that we can make in future. And as I said, we are going to talk about future simple and future continuous today. For the first one, we are going to have like a revision, or we are going to explain some very basic details that we have um, that specific tense. So in this case, we are going to make like a review of the most basic ideas that we have, or the main, or we can say the most important information that we have about the simple future. So the first thing that we are going to do is to have a revision of the important points about the simple future. Then we are going to have like the general information about the future, the simple future. Then we are going to see the form, or the things that we need to know about this tense. Then we are going to see some examples, and after that we are going to learn about the uses of that tense. So for the first thing that we have here is in the revision of the simple future, we have that English knows 4 ways to convey the idea of an action in the near future, depending on the context and the general meaning. For what concerns simple future, we have, in the first case, we have will, that is maybe one of the most used auxiliaries, or we can also call it like um, modal verb in this case. We use a lot this modal verb in future, because we feel like more comfortable with that modal verb. But will is an auxiliary also, because you know that is a modal verb or is an auxiliary. And in this case, it is an auxiliary verb followed by the base form of another verb. It doesn't change its conjugation, and it's mostly used for prediction or simple statements about the future. For example, if you help me, I will help you. So in this case, the first element that we are going to use in the future is will. And in this case, we are going to use it as an auxiliary verb because we are going to use another verb, but that verb is going to be in a base form. So in that case, we are going to use it for prediction or simple statements about the future. Then we have going to, that is the present continuous of the verb to go. Is the most correct way of talking about intentions and future plans. That depends on yourself most of the time. I'm going to work in a bank when I leave school. In this case, we can say that in between will and going to, we are going to use going to when we have plans for the things that we are saying in future. And we're going to use will for situations that are not planned. In this case, is something spontaneous. So in that case, but it's not like we are just going to use one of them. In this case, it's depending on you in which of these ones you like to use the most. Then we have the present continuous, that it says that the present continuous tense is used in talking about arrangement and almost sure facts and firm decisions. Our grandparents are visiting us in Christmas. So in this case, we can use present continuous to talk about future actions. And also we can use simple present. And in this case, the present simple tense is usually used to refer to the future events that are scheduled. So in this case is when you have like a specific date, a specific hour to do something. So we have the example, hurry up, the train departs in 10 minutes. So the first thing that I'm going to do is to write the elements or the things that we need to know about the simple future, or the elements that we need to learn about the simple future. And then we are going to begin with the structure. So in this case, we are going to use will because it's the most used auxiliary. In this case, we are going to focus on will, and we are going to see also want, that is the negative form of will. And then we are going to see the uses that we can give to this structure, because you can say in the information that I am giving to you, we can say that we can use will for predictions or simple statements, but we are going to see another use that we can give to the simple future. Así que voy a ponerles primero la revisión o los elementos importantes del simple future. Luego vamos a ver la estructura, ejemplos y para qué lo utilizamos. El simple future. So we are going to begin with the revision or the most important things that we need to know about the simple future. So let's see. So here we have the four things that we need to know, or the four most important elements that we need to keep in mind when we are using the future tense. And in this case is the way in which we are going to use these structures, we can say. How can we use will? How can we use going to? Also present continuous and simple present, because in that case, we are going to use uh, words in present or structures in present when we are going to talk about like the future, because in some cases these structures are talking about some action that it's going to happen in the future. So in that case, we can use the present continuous, and also we can use the simple present for things that we are sure that it's going to happen in the future. Like in the last one, in the simple present, in which it says that we are going to use these tense when we are talking about future events that are scheduled. So in this case is when we have these actions very marked in that case, because we know that it's going to happen in a moment in the future. Like in the example, hurry up, the train departs in 10 minutes. So we know that we need to take that train, and also we are using the simple present, but in that case we are referring to a situation in the future. So in that case we are going to use present tenses to talk about actions in future. Now we are going to see some information about the future simple, in this case just the use of will. In this case, we are not going to talk about going to. We are just going to use will, because in that case, we have like different uses for the will, and we are going to see what are the uses. So we are going to begin with that part. So let's see. What is the information that we have about the simple future? And what is the structure or the elements that we need to add to the sentences when we are like expressing ideas in future? And we are going to see the positive, negative, and questions using this structure of will. So we are going to begin with that part. First is the general information that we have about the future simple tense. And then we are going to see the structure that we have for this tense. So let's see. So in this case, we have here that the future simple is used to talk about a time later than now. So in this case is sometime in the future, but we are not just talking about like a very, very long time in the future, but it's going to happen in that way too. So when we are talking about sometime later than now, we are going to use this future structure. And in this case, it says that we can use this structure in a lot of different ways. So we are going to explain in which ways we can use the simple future. But first, we are going to talk about the form or the elements that we need to add to the sentences in which we are creating or giving information about future actions. Así que vamos a ver las formas o los elementos que le vamos a agregar a nuestras oraciones cuando estemos hablando de eventos en el futuro. So let's see. We have here form, and we have the first one. We're going to make like a short list of things. And in this case, it is made up of the verb will want plus the base infinitive verb, but in this case, we're not going to use to. So we are going to have three important elements in this sentence. We're going to use the subject, then we are going to use the auxiliary will, and then we are going to use another verb in base form. But you know, when we're talking about infinitive or base form, we need to add to at the beginning of the verb. So in this case, we are not going to use it. En esta estructura vamos a utilizar el will con un verbo en infinitivo o en forma base. La forma base o forma infinitiva de los verbos siempre lleva un to al principio. En este caso no lo vamos a agregar, no es necesario agregarlo, sino que simplemente vamos a utilizar el verbo en una forma más primitiva, podemos llamarle una forma base para completar estas oraciones. The next one said, because will is a modal verb, in some cases we are going to use it as a modal verb, but you know that in this case we're using like an auxiliary, because in that case it's telling us that we are using the future to express our ideas. But it says that it is a modal verb and it doesn't change depending on the person doing the action. So in this case, you are going to use will for every person that you have in the pronouns, and you are not going to change anything with that word. So in that case, it's the same word for every subject that you have. Así que vamos a tener el will, que no va a tener ningún cambio. Si lo agregamos, digamos, con la tercera persona, porque sabemos que tiene su regla la tercera persona en el singular, pero en este caso no vamos a cambiarlo porque funciona como un auxiliar y funciona como un modal verb. So in that case, it's not going to use another change or a change in the form of the will.
Ay, va a querer decir.
So in the number 3, we have that we can use contraction as with other auxiliaries or other verbs that we are using in this case, or other modal verbs that we can use in English. So in this case, you can use the contractions to make a short sentence. In that case, you are like having less time in which you are explaining the things because you're not using the whole thing. And in this case, you can use the contractions and it is the same meaning. So in that case, it's not that it's going to change a lot the meaning of the sentence. In this case, it's the same case. Then in the negative form, we can also use will not for more emphasis, or we can use won't, that is also the contraction, or will not. So in that case, it's depending on the way that you want to tell the things. But in this case, when you are using will not is in more formal way. So in this case, it's more common to use will not when you are writing something. But when you are talking with someone, you can use want. And it's like very in speech. Así que ya sabemos que para la forma escrita podemos utilizar el will not y es mucho más formal que el want. Y el want lo utilizaríamos más cuando estamos hablando con alguien. Pero en este caso, will not is better for writing things and want is for speaking. So in that case, we make like a difference between will not and want. So you know that when we are making like short answers, we need to match the structure that we are using. And in this case, because we're using will, we need to match that auxiliary or that modal verb. And in the answer, we need to add that information maybe at the end or something like that. So it is necessary to match the structure that we are using. So in this case, we are using questions with will. So in this case, you need to answer with will. And in the case that we are using the verb to be, you are going to use the verb to be for the answer. Ya sabemos que para contestar tenemos que agregar la estructura que estamos utilizando. En este caso, como estamos utilizando el will, vamos a decir yes, I will, yes, he will, yes, she will. Es para tener, ¿verdad? O hacer como el matching de la estructura que estamos utilizando. Y va a pasar con otras tantas como el do, el has, el is, que le vamos a agregar esas como feedback de la estructura a nuestra respuesta. And we are going to see some examples in a positive, negative, and in question of this structure and how to create this kind of sentence. So here we have some examples of the use of this structure in future. So in the positive one, we have I will eat. In this case, you can see the structure. We have the subject, then we have the will or the auxiliary, and then we have the verb in an infinitive form or base form. Then we have the second one, you will read a book. She will buy chocolate. And in negative, we have the two options, won't or will not. He won't play tennis. It will not sleep outside. They won't pass the exam. Then for questions, we have, will you buy a house? Will he take the photos? And will we drink water? So in that case, we have like a little change in the way we create questions because we are going to change the position of the words. And in this case, we are changing the auxiliary that is going to be at the beginning of the sentence. Then we are going to use the subject and then the verb and all of the things that we are using for the sentence and also adding the question mark. Así que ahí tenemos los ejemplos, tenemos positivos, negativos y preguntas. En el caso de las preguntas, ya saben que cuando estamos utilizando estos auxiliares, el auxiliar va al inicio, luego el sujeto, luego el verbo y luego el complemento con la question mark. En el caso de que estemos utilizando WH words, vamos a poner la palabra específica para cada pregunta. But in this case, we're just using this auxiliary and we are going to create question with that auxiliary. So, what are the uses that we can give to this structure? We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 uses that we can have for this structure. So let's see what are the uses that we can give for the future simple. In the use number 1, we're going to write it with a number. In the use number 1, we have an instant or a spontaneous decision. So in this case, when you are doing something and you are not like thinking about the situation, you are just wanting to change that situation that you are living, you make this kind of instant or spontaneous decision. For example, when you are feeling hungry, you think about to eat something, but in that case, it's not like you are going to do it in that way. Maybe you can change your mind when you are on the kitchen. Or in the case that you are feeling bored, you can say, I'm bored and I will read a book or I will watch TV or something like that. So in this case, it's instant or a spontaneous decision. Think in the moment without thinking about the things that we are going to do later. Así que el uso número 1 es para decisiones espontáneas o instantáneas sin pensar mucho, solo tomamos la decisión y en muchos de los casos podemos cambiar de opinión, pero es algo que no nos detenemos mucho a pensar. So, instant or spontaneous decision. Use number 2 for future predictions based on a belief. So in this case, when we're talking about belief, is something that we think is going to happen. In some cases, we don't know if this thing is going to happen for real, but we are like expecting that thing to happen. In this case, we have like an example. I'm sure you will pass the exam, or maybe I'm sure that you will have the job or something like that, or I'm sure that you will win the lottery or something like that. So in the number 2, predicciones futuras basadas en lo que nosotros creemos. No es algo que esté comprobado o es algo que se pueda comprobar fácilmente, sino que estamos hablando de cosas que nosotros creemos y queremos que pasen, que en muchos de los casos no va a pasar de la misma manera que nosotros lo esperamos. Then, number 3. We have in number 3, promises. In this case, we're talking about something that we say to someone that we are going to do in a specific time or maybe on the future. That is the case that we're talking about future. So in that case, is a promise. For example, I won't tell anyone your secret, or we can say, I will go with you to the concert or something like that. Then we have in the number 4, offers. Then we have requests in the number 5. Number 6, threats. In this case, we're talking like amenazas, but they are not like very bad threats or something like that. In this case, it's just like when we are like having a fight with our brothers or sisters or cousins or something like that, or with our friends. And we say, if you do that again, I will tell mom. Son esas pequeñas amenazas, ¿verdad? Que se hacen sin dañar a nadie, sino que simplemente es para hacer que alguien se detenga de hacer alguna acción que no está bien. So in that case, we are talking about that kind of sentences. Then we have future facts. And we have an example, I will be back later tonight. So that's something that is going to happen because we need to work or we are going to a party or something like that. So future facts. And we are going to have like a short exercise in this case, in which we're going to use the simple future. So for this exercise, you need to tell me, or in this case, you need to think about some sentences using will. You can use it in negative, or you can use it in positive, or you can make questions. You can have two of them. I mean, two positive sentence, two negative sentence, and two questions. And I will write the list here. So you need to write on the chat your sentence. Van a ser dos oraciones positivas, dos negativas y dos preguntas. Las van a poner en el chat y yo voy a ir escribiendo en el exercise list las oraciones que ustedes van a ir creando con will. Así que we are going to have like 5 minutes to complete the task. 5 minutos para completar lo que es la actividad. So you have 5 minutes right now and we are going to write the list. If you have already your sentence, you can begin writing in the chat and I'm going to write it in the document. Cuando ya las tengan, solo las escriben en el chat y yo las voy a ir escribiendo en la lista del documento. So, let's begin right now. have like a lot of sentences. So we are going to see what are the examples that we have here. And we are going to begin with this one. I will buy a pair of shoes next Saturday. I will go to work tomorrow. My sister will do exercise in the park. I will win the race. I will play football tomorrow. I will collect stamps for my football album. I will see a movie. You will get your first prize. I will study in the next module. She will send the information. I will cook dinner tonight. I will go to Europe next year. I will go to the beach on Sunday. He won't eat a fish this week. They won't read the book in a month. She will come to the country next year. Would you go to the movie theater in October? They won't cook this week. Will she study at the university next year? Will he play in the next match? He won't answer me. He will play the guitar. She will be here tomorrow. The dog won't bark tonight. And she will be angry. And I have, I think, one more. Will, will he drink alcohol? Will he drink alcohol? Then will she play tennis? Will she play tennis? And another one, we will have a fluent English. Of course, we will have fluent English. So in that case, we have a lot of sentence that we can create with this structure of the future simple. So we're going to begin with the other one or the second one, that in this case is the future continuous. We are going to see some details about the future continuous because we're almost done with the hour. So we're just to begin talking about the future continuous and the elements that we can find in that structure. And the first thing that we need to know about the future continuous is that we use this tense to talk about things in progress at a particular time in the future. Para este segundo tense, estamos hablando de lo que es el futuro continuo. En este caso estamos hablando de acciones o cosas que están en progreso y que se van a llevar a cabo en un tiempo particular en el futuro. Para esas situaciones donde no ha terminado la acción o no o ya comenzó y sigue pasando, vamos a utilizar lo que es el future continuous. So let's see what are the elements that we need to know about the future continuous. So in this case, we have this structure or this form in which we're going to use will, want, plus the verb to be in that form, in that way. And then we are going to have another verb with ing. Así que vamos a utilizar el will o el want con el verbo to be, así como está escrito ahí. No es que lo vayamos a cambiar a presente o a pasado, sino que simplemente vamos a escribir be y luego vamos a utilizar lo que es el verbo con un ing. So, In this case, how do I form it, or how can I create some sentences using the future continuous? We are going to see some examples in this case in the negative, interrogative, and affirmative sentence. We are going to see some examples. And then we are going to talk about like, I think that we are just going to have the examples, and tomorrow we are going to continue with the when to use this structure. So we are going to see the examples. So here we have the examples of this structure. So you can see how can we create sentences using the form that we have in this part, that is the will want to be plus ing. So in this case, we have in positive, I will be working, I will be singing, you will be writing. So remember that in this case, we are talking about continuous, and the form of the continuous is to add in ing at the end of the verb. Then for the negative, we have I won't be painting, he won't be drinking, it won't be barking. And then in questions, will we be talking? Will I be driving? And will she be sleeping? So in that case, you are just going to add or change the way we are like writing the positive statements. You are going to write the will or the auxiliary in this case at the beginning, and then you are going to use the subject, then the verb be, and then the verb with the ing form. And in that case, you're going to have your question. So we are going to end here this part, and we are going to talk about the uses tomorrow and the other two tenses that we have left of this future tense. So we are going to end the session here, and we are going to see each other tomorrow. Remember that we are ending the day 2, and we are going to have just 2 more days to end this course. So have a really good night and see you tomorrow.
Okay, see you tomorrow.
Bye. See you
Bye-bye.
tomorrow.
See you.
Bye, teacher. See you.
Bye. Bye-bye.